and that we fall asleep. And sometimes we fall asleep for our entire life, 70 years. We just sleep our life away. And when Mashiach comes, we're going to be Hayinu Kecholmim, we're going to wake up like we were dreaming for 70 years. And we said the power of a dream is that it feels so real when you're in it. But when you wake up, you feel like, oh my goodness, it was all a dream. And the power of that means that Hashem is teaching us that there could be a reality that feels so real, but it's not. And that's this world. Feels so real. My boss, like, whatever. Pick your thing. It's like, I can't get out of this. I'm stuck. Or whatever we think is the reality. And it was all a dream. Or that guy did this thing to me, or she did this, or it was all Hashem. So we're going to wake up from that when Mashiach comes. But Reb Nachman's trying to wake you up now, while you're in the dream. That's the idea. He's trying to give you Mashiach now. So that's really what this world of Reb Nachman's all about, is to wake up already while you're in the dream. And that's all of Purim. This Purim is Megillat Esther. Thank you very much. Shkoyach. Tizkei mitzvahs. Wow. Nitzoitzes. Megillat Esther means to be megaleh, to reveal the Hester, to reveal that which was hiding. Rabbi Isa, get involved. That which was hiding, that which I did not see. I did not see that Hashem was here. I thought that it was, he did that thing to me and she said that thing to me. And really it was all Hashem. And Megillas Esther reveals the hiddenness, that Hashem is weaving everything. Hashem is doing it all. Ein oid milvado. And there's a purpose for everything. How many of you guys thought, 6 months ago you'd be sitting here? Like, how did that happen? And this person, and also I met this person, and this thing happened in my life, and then you zoom out, you're like, Hashem, that was you the whole time. Oh, you sent that shaliach, you sent that person, and everything started to work out. But in the moment, I lost my job, and this thing, and bummer, and then I got, a sports injury, and like that, but in the moment I felt like, But if you can zoom out or see the world through the world of what's called the inner light of Torah, the inner light of Torah is trying to introduce you that everything is happening with Hashem's guiding hand. Everything. And that's the Purim story. Is that even though that you don't see Hashem's name written explicitly, Hashem's name is filled throughout the entire Purim story. Even though it's not explicit. And we mentioned that the Kamarn Rebbe has a sefer, and they'll bring it in next time. The whole sefer is just the names of Hashem inside the Megillah Esther, but it's hidden. The beginning letters, the end letters, middle letters, all sorts of interesting hiding places where Hashem is woven throughout the Megillah. So I'm continuing in this piece in Hilchos Purim from Nasim, in the middle of Torah Aleph. And we said that what wakes us up from our dreams? Stories. Rabbi Nachman said, I see the world differently. He mentioned there's certain things that the world says one thing and I say the exact opposite. Rabbi Nachman said the world says that you tell stories to put your children to sleep. I say we tell stories to wake our children up. You get what I'm saying? To wake us up. That we're sleeping. We're awake, but we're sleeping. When you tell a story, you kind of come out of your slumber. You wake up. So the whole Megillah of Purim is a story. It's a story. And through the story, we get woken up. And it's interesting, in the Purim story, at the end, it says, Harbe me'amei haaretz misyadim. There were many, many non-Jews that became Jewish at the end of the Purim story. It was like a major movement a major conversion movement at the end of the Purim story. It's just fascinating. People started waking up to Hashem in the story. So much so that they wanted to become Jewish. We don't go and Hashem is for the whole world. God is for humanity. If a person wants to become a Jew, there's more responsibilities, and you don't have to do that. But at the end of the Purim story, people got very, very excited. They saw that Hashem is running the story here. So the world started becoming aroused to goodness, to the deeper truth of Hashem, and many started converting. So the whole Purim story is a story. Bechinas v'yagid Mordechai la Esther Amalka, and we see that Mordechai is telling stories over to Esther. Shesiper amaisa shahai la Esther. She bechinas astar bechinas shena. So even the word of Esther, Rav Nosson is pointing out, Mordechai was telling over to Esther. So the simple meaning is he's telling her stories. But the deeper meaning is Mordechai is telling to Esther. Esther means Hester. Esther means hidden. He's telling her stories to help awaken the hiddenness, to help remove the hiddenness. Kadei la'or me'ashena, in order to wake a person up from their sleep. V'legalo yisastara al yidei zeh, and to reveal the hiddenness, to make a Megillat Esther. V'zeh haya b'soif, she'al yidei zeh bo ha'geula az, and then comes the Geula, the end of the Purim story. La Yehudim ha'yisa'or v'simcha v'sos v'ikar. It's Yom Tov. It's redemption. So the whole Purim story is a microcosm of how to go from hiddenness to redemption. And the Purim story is happening in every single one of our lives. That's why it says you have to really pay attention, because you're in the story. It's you. It's your story. More than any other of the books of the Torah, Megillas Esther is the most personalized. And the Sfarim say, because Megillas Esther is called an Igeris. An Igeris means a letter. Nothing else is called an Igeris, a letter. A letter is something that's very personal. If you write somebody a letter, it's a very personal thing, a letter. There's one thing for a king to make a proclamation, there's another thing that he writes it personally to you. And the Sfarim point out that a letter, if you want to share something deep with somebody, you don't write a sefer, you don't write a book. A book becomes very public. A book is something that is you don't write a newspaper when something is you write a private letter. And I heard from Tzimai, a beautiful Indian, that when you really want to tell the deepest secrets, sometimes in the letter you say, I'm going to tell you secrets in here. The secrets are so deep that really I think you should, burn this letter after. What's contained in this letter is so deep, is so profound, you have to destroy it. The contents are too, if other eyes get a hold of this, the content is too intimate. So Reb Tzimai said that's what the Megillas Esther is. It's this Igeris that's for you with very, very deep secrets in it. That's just holding your Megillah, you should feel like. And you have to listen, because in there is your story. Is your story. She'ali de zeba geula az. Kamay shekosov balayla hahu nodna shnas hamelech. That on that night, it says the king couldn't sleep. So who does it refer to on the simple meaning? And by the way, that's the part of the Megillah that the Geula, the redemption, is starting as you have to raise your voice. Shnas HaMelech. Because that's when the main Geula of the Megillah is happening, when the Melech couldn't sleep. Which Melech are we talking about? Achashverosh. He couldn't sleep that night, right? He was tossing and turning, and then he realized, was there somebody that did a good for me that I didn't pay them back? And they brought the Royal Chronicles. I said, Mordechai. He saved my life, right? He saved my life. That Bigsan and Teresh are trying to kill me, and Mordechai understood their language. And Mordechai went and told Esther and told the king. And then they went and they indeed found out that they were plotting to kill him, either poison, something else. And he wrote it down, that Mordechai saved my life. So this was the beginning. But it means sleep was like shaky. This is the part where all of a sudden people are sleeping less. And that's where the Geula starts from, is that you wake up. We could be, we're basically walking, sleeping all the time. It's about waking up from our sleep. That's Purim. And it's interesting that Purim is the last holiday of the year, which is the end of the year, which is the end of the Gullus. The Jewish year begins in Nisan. That's the biblical New Year. Is in Nisan, which is next month. So the end of the year, when it's like the deepest part of the sleep, is then now when we have to wake up. The end of the story. We've been sleeping for so long. I suggest that everybody, before Purim, learns the story of the lost princess. Anybody heard of that story? It's the first of Rabbi Nachman's stories.
The Lost Princess?
The Lost Princess. It's a bestseller. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaroi.
Amen.
The story of the Lost Princess, because there the viceroy falls asleep a few times. And the whole story of trying to free the lost princess, who's been taken into captivity, is to go and free the princess, which is, the princess is us, is our neshama. And how to not fall asleep, and to bring home the princess to her father's home. And what kept the king awake, that he couldn't sleep, is he knew there was something going on. And they started telling him stories. Started reading stories about Mordechai. Mordechai is the tzaddik that wakes us up. Bring the Sefer HaZechronos, Divrei Hayom, v'yimotze kosov asher higid Mordechai, shemotzu sipurei maisius shel Mordechai, bechinas Rav Chesed, like we mentioned last time, that Mordechai is the same numerical value as Rav Chesed, great of kindness. Ki yalidei sipurei maisius shel Mordechai shel sipurei Esther. This that Mordechai is telling stories to Esther, which means he's waking up the hiddenness. Shehi bechinas Knesset Yisrael. Esther is also a code word for the entire of Klal Yisrael, the entire Jewish people. Esther means the Jewish people. Shaboy v'astaras pan b'china sheina, that Esther, that the Jewish people went through a time of challenge. And hastara, Esther, means that we ourselves went through a time that we don't see Hashem. That Hashem is hidden from us. And Mordechai is waking that up. And Mordechai is, through the Sipurei Maisius, is bringing us back in Tshuva, to get back on track, not to walk around sleeping. And when we wake up down here, it wakes up the upper world. It wakes up, so to speak, the king from his slumber, even though Hashem hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael, Hashem is never sleeping. But sometimes it feels that way, that we don't see Hashem's active involvement. So Hashem is waiting for us, like they say, to pick up the phone first. That's called Isarus Delatata, that we make a move down here. We start waking up from our slumber, then Hashem, He'll show you what it means. He'll wake up, so to speak, from the Shnas HaMelech, and all of a sudden start to make more explicit moves and bring redemption. But He wants us to wake up. Because if we wake up first, Hashem could bring the redemption. But then it wouldn't be our redemption. It would be Hashem's redemption. He wants it to be our redemption. That we were the harbingers of the redemption. That's much more righteous if we get the job done, as opposed to waiting for Hashem to bring the redemption. Bechinas nodna shnas hamelech ki al dei sarusa l'tata hi sarusa d'leil ze bechinas v'toimer Esther l'melech b'shem Mordechai. And Esther told to the king in the name of Mordechai, Shebechinas Esther, the Hainu Knesset Yisrael, Hayalav Pischoin Pe Lahamlitz Toiv Al Yisrael. That Esther, who's Klal Yisrael, is now opening up good things. Opening up channels of bracha. Ki Sipra Lamalka Shel Oilam. Because Esther is saying, Vehevia Lamala Sipurim Ma'aser Shel Mordechai. Ali Dezeh, when Esther, when she begins to say over the Sipurei Maisius, she begins to say things that Mordechai told her to the king. So that is recorded. That will have effects. Then the king remembers that. The king, so to speak, wakes up from the slumber. He wasn't able to sleep. And then he brings blessing down. Says, now I have to reward the ones who did good for me. And this is what it means when we start reading the Megillah. We're going to read the Megillah 2 times. Don't sleep in. The night one's easy because everyone's excited in shul. The morning one, by the way, do not drink the night of Purim. You do not need to drink. There's no mitzvah to drink. There's a mitzvah to have maybe a cup of wine, as there is on any Yom Tov. To just have a revius of yain. There's no mitzvah of mishte. There's no mitzvah of nechai v'inish besume, which means to get spicy. And therefore, just, relax. The night of Purim. The night of Purim has its own avodas. Some people finish the entire Maseches Megillah. Some people try to read all of Sefer Tehillim that night. There's a lot to do. There's going to be Purim spiels here. I hope everybody's working on yours. Make sure they're, yeshiva standards and above. And there's a lot to do. The Mishte is Monday afternoon. So the Megillah, though, which is Sunday night and Monday morning, Shekava l'deiris likreis ha-Megillah b'kol shana v'shana, is that we read the Megillah every single year. He ikar ha-mitzvah shel Purim. It's the main mitzvah of Purim. Everyone's like, what do you mean? I thought the drinking is the mitzvah of Purim. The Megillah is the main mitzvah of Purim. Kedei la'oiris Yisrael b'kol shana. Why? Because the Megillah wakes us up from our slumber. And that is the ikar point of Purim, is to wake up from our slumber. Because what's the whole Megillah? Sipur Meiser shel Shonim Kadmonius. Megillah Esther is Sipurei Meises. It's mamish all of Reb Nachman. And specifically Sipur Meises Mishan Kadmonius, which is a term that's used for Reb Nachman's stories. Stories from ancient days. Tales from ancient days. There's one thing to tell a tale, but then there's another thing to tell a tale that brings you back to ancient days consciousness. We mentioned that people are having a hard time thinking about old things nowadays. Whereas you have to live in a modern world but be connected to ancient consciousness. It's very, very important. Not just old, ancient. Like, can you bring your consciousness to a world of all the way back? That's why it's a chashuv thing, like we said, that to have old things. Things that were... if you have the Kiddush cup of the Baal Shem Tov, and you have like a modern Kiddush cup that you just bought like in some modern place, I hope you'd use the Baal Shem Tov's Kiddush cup. I mean, it's not even a question, obviously you would. But it's not as like modern and fancy, and even though it's royal, but it might even be a bit like, dented. Might even be a bit, used. Like, because it has something in it. It's deep. The Baal Shem Tov said that anything that was handmade, when he would see that object, that item, he could see the inner universe of the one that made it. He could feel their energy. That's why handmade things are very chashuv. How many things are handmade nowadays? Barely anything. And we mentioned, for a Jew though, there will always be handmade things. AI cannot write you a Sefer Torah, or tefillin, or mezuzahs, or tire tzitzis for you, for that matter. Or do a bris milah, or shchita. You need to have lishma. It needs to be lishma. Or bake your matzahs entirely. It needs to be l'shem matzahs mitzvah. There has to be the neshama inside of it. So why are we so crazy about handmade matzahs? Just have some guy before he starts it, l'shem matzahs mitzvah, and the machine will do the rest. The idea being, the more handmade, the more you feel the soul of the person in that item. That's why we're into handmade matzahs. They're not as pretty, square box. I read this book. I read actually only just like a chapter of it 25 years ago. I think it was called The Last Real American Indian. Maybe someone will find out if that's the exact title, because it was actually very profound. The book basically spoke about a native individual, and he was basically reminiscing of like the world that he came from, in the Native American world, as the colonizers, and as basically the modern world was like, I'd say the Western world was kind of taking over the more native practices of his people. And he had this way of describing, like with very kind of pure eyes, which was, and maybe you'll find the quote, because maybe we'll read it, because it was like so poignant. And basically it went like this, that I started to observe that people liked boxes. They would sleep on top of a box, and then this box would start beeping at them. So they would hit that box. They would go into this big box where there was lots of little boxes inside of it, and it was a cold box. They would take a box out of that box, and they would pour the box into some type of a utensil, and they would eat. And then they would get into this box on wheels, and they would drive, you never guess, to this humongous box. And then they would take a box to go up a couple floors into this very box-like looking room, and you never get it. What happened? The entire room was filled with cubicle boxes. But then that's not it. They'd spend the whole day typing on a box. And he said, I just started observing the world where we came from. How many things are boxes? Things are more rounded. By the way, that's one of the secrets of the dreidel, is to turn boxes into circles. When you spin the dreidel, you take the dreidel, which is a box, 4 corners, and 4 sides, you spin it, it becomes a circle. You're kind of getting out of just box consciousness. That's one of the concepts. And what he was pointing out is like people, they're losing touch with a certain oldness. And I remember hearing that, I was like, I hear that. I hear what he's saying. So we like round matzahs. If you get square matzahs, it's okay. It's kosher. But the round there's more soul of the person. There's more, and the more involvement, you can also get the flour hand ground or machine ground flour. So I like to get hand ground. And the more involvement, humanness. We're very into human soul input. And spiritual, not on the vibrations, but the spiritual image of the human goes into handmade things. Intention, exactly. And therefore, the more human involvement, we love human involvement. Especially holy human involvement. Like we said, the Baal Shem Tov, if he saw a handmade thing that was not so holy, it was. And therefore, if you have things that are made by hand, they're older. Very little is made by hand anymore. So the idea of sipuri maises, mishanim kadmonius, to be someone who has things that connect you to old, In a modern world, 100% in the modern world, but old at the same time. Connected to deep, deep old things.
Rabbi, sorry, before we move on, I think it's called The Last Indian.
The Last Indian?
Yeah, I looked it up. It's, or The Last Real Indian, about Cheeto Harpo. Does that sound right?
It's been about 25 years,
Okay.
but it sounds right.
What tribe?
I don't know, I have to read it. We could read it and then figure it out.
love
There's
it.
also, it's funny he talks about boxes. There's this song that I remember called Little Boxes. I gotta find it, but it's literally about like just this, it's like this, it sounds like a children's song that's all sweet and kind, but it just talks about little boxes and all of us just living our life with little boxes, going to little boxes. And it's so, on the outside it's so sweet, but if you really listen to it, it's like, whoa.
It hits deep.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you start, am I closing myself off? I don't want to be in a box. I want to. There's this. Just we have to make a mention of this. There is a wellness center in Bergenfield, Teaneck, called No Box. Cold plunges, infrared saunas. So it's somebody that I'm personally connected to. Anybody who's in the Teaneck Bergenfield area, look up No Box.
5 minutes down the road.
Okay, from No Box.
Yeah.
So
10 minutes.
So this is helping people get out of box problems with their health because they've been boxed into certain things, to pull a person out of kind of the boxes that they've been put in, and to start feeling free and healthy again. Cold plunges, my friends. Cold plunges. Infrared saunas. Like real deep, deep cleansing, deep getting back to Shanam Kadmonius, getting back to the ancient state of well-being. We're supposed to be well. The state of the human is supposed to be well. So Megillah Esther, the Rebbe here is saying, is the Iker of Purim. It's waking us up from the slumber, and it's bringing us back to ancient consciousness, and that ancient consciousness starts to wake us in this amazing way. Shezeh bechinas ha-Megillah, she dover yoker me'oid. I love that. The Megillah is a very, very precious, expensive. V'kol ikara hi bechinas sipur ma'isa. The whole Megillah is a story. Shemat cheles vayihi b'imei Achashverosh. And the whole thing begins, it was in the days of Achashverosh. The whole of the Megillah is like one big sipur ma'isa. V'chein ad soif ha-Megillah hakol hoylech al derech sipur ma'isa. The whole thing is a sipur ma'isa. V'hu ma'isa shel Mordechai v'Esther shu bechinas ma'isa shel shonim kadmonius she'ali dezeh me'oidere me'asheina b'kol shana v'shana. If we didn't have Megillah Esther, we would be, God forbid, out. We'd be completely out. We'd be completely asleep as a people. Megillah Esther comes at the end of the year, which means the end of this long, bitter exile, 2,000 years, that's keeping us from completely falling asleep. And the Baal Shem Tov talks about different levels of sleep. Like nim v'loy nim, tir v'loy tir, where you're like away. And you get like that one a little bit. And by the way, the Gemara says, how asleep do you have to be that you didn't fulfill the Megillah? You have to be awake by Megillah. You can't be sleeping. So it's like, what if you're like just nim v'loy nim, tir v'loy tir? You're awake, you're not awake, you're not awake. Are you yotze? And then deeper, and then the Baal Shem says that there's deep, and then there's like comatose, where you need like sniffing salts. And then there's even that you just can't. And the Baal Shem Tov says a secret thing. He says one of the ways to wake up somebody who's fallen deep, deep, deep is you whisper their name into their ear, their Hebrew name.
Is it sleep as in sleeping though? Or sleep as in being unconscious, being programmed?
Same thing, yeah, for sure. Yeah, oh yeah, we're all awake, seemingly right now.
Right.
But we're...
Biologically.
Yeah, but we're sleeping, we're schluffing. We're in this dream. Through the programming, for sure. We're, sleeping. So, yeah, part of the Megillah, and really coming to yeshiva is all about this, is just like waking up out of the matrix. So says the Rebbe. שעל זה מאויר נעשן בכל שנה ושנה, בכינס והיום האלה נזכרן ונעשים בכל שנה ושנה. That every single year we're going to reawaken, and we hope that every year you awaken at a deeper level. That's the idea. Like, didn't we read this Megillah last year? Remember, it's a letter, which means it's personalized, and it's to wake you up deeper and deeper. We're reminded of the real world. Because sleep causes forgetfulness. The programming is also part of that. You forget what life is really all about. Because when you go to bed, there's a certain amount of your consciousness that is removed. It's called histalkus hamoichin. And that's what Haman is all about, is making us forget. It's interesting that Hitler, Yimach Shemo, was a master propagandist. You take over the radio stations, you take over the television, you take over all the networks. You create a sense of unification. B'chinas hipil pur, shu b'chinas shicha kamuva. B'chein b'kol shana nasa zoyis kamuva b'sfarim. And every single year we're waking up, meaning every single year there's this darkness that comes to the world, and we have to wake up from that darkness. Through the Megillah we wake up from the forgetfulness, we wake up from the programming. For this very reason, Amru Chazal, it says you have to open up the Megillah. You're going to notice Rabbi Rasman is going to open up the entire Megillah, like the whole thing opened up. It's not like one story. That you open it up like a letter. Like, let me just see this whole letter, and you start reading the letter. And the main strengthening of the darkness is in Adar. Because Haman saw that why is this month of Adar a dark month for the Jews? It was the month that Moshe Rabbeinu died. He dies on Zion Adar.
Was that also his birthday?
So that's what he didn't know. It was also his birthday. Which means at the same time that it's the end of the great light, and Moshe Rabbeinu represents Torah. It's like the darkening of Torah. It was also the day where he's born. And what he didn't realize is that deeper, not the case, so he was born, so what? What Haman didn't realize was that the death of Moshe Rabbeinu was a birth to a larger story of Moshe Rabbeinu. When he died, he became bigger. He didn't die and leave. When Moshe Rabbeinu died, he became the Torah. While he was alive, it was just, the Torah and Moshe. But he was limited because he was a person. When he died, though, he infused into every fiber of Torah. So that's what I mean, he was born. The day that he died, he was born. He was born now and became completely integrated into the Torah. So that Haman didn't know.
Do we, in a sense, even though we're not at the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, do we integrate in a way with the Torah when we die as well?
Yes. To the degree that you gave yourself to Torah. And that all depends on using our free will and dedicating to Torah. That's what this is all about. You become one with the Torah. And that's why all the free will of just rejecting all the programming and all the whatever the propaganda that's being put out is how can I choose you, Hashem? How can I choose Torah? I want to integrate with that. Because in the world of truth, all the falsehood and the lies fall away. The Haman is gone. So, to the degree that I associate it with truth, that's what remains. That's who you are forever. To the degree, God forbid, that a person associated with falseness, there's no falseness up there. So, it's just what's left. So be careful in investing in things of falseness. Because it doesn't last. It's gone. So says the Rebbe, a couple more minutes. Yes, Yankel.
If people had invested in the falseness and but like really what they were looking for was like the godliness within it, like the good within the darkness, whatever, like the Lekutei. Did they get any scar for that? Like even though it was like not on purpose, but it was like
so that's true. That's
okay, almost. They were looking at the evil, but really what they were looking for was the good, but they weren't conscious of doing it. They were asleep doing it.
So that's what it says, the tshuva me'ava. The Gemara says that if a person does tshuva, the one place the Gemara says, if a person does tshuva, his sins turn into unintentional sins. Like, if he turned on the lights on Shabbos, if he does tshuva, so it's like, oh, he didn't realize it was Shabbos and he turned on the light. That's what it looks like in heaven. He rewrites the script. But then the Gemara goes on to say, if he does tshuva, his sins turn into mitzvahs. Mitzvahs. How do you turn a light on Shabbos and turn that into a mitzvah? So the Gemara says, oh, it's not a contradiction. If you do tshuva out of fear, the sins turn into shoygeg, into unintentional. Whoops, I didn't know it was Shabbos. But if you do tshuva out of love, the averas turn into mitzvahs. Why? This is what Yankel's saying, is that when a guy is doing an avera, does his soul want that? No, he just really fell asleep. He's really in a dark place. But because the secret of God's unity is that God is everywhere. So what was his soul doing when it went to that, dark place? It was looking, when it went to go eat a cheeseburger. It was looking for Hashem. He didn't know it though. That was not his intention. But his soul was searching to find Hashem there. And therefore, if he does tshuva out of love, and he identifies with his soul as his primary identity, which is the major part of tshuva me'ava, is re-identifying as a neshama, and then yearning connection from the neshama's perspective. So the neshama is always looking for Hashem. So then what you do is that in the world of neshama, it's not bound by zman. And therefore you can retroactively go and now that I'm a neshama, so what was the neshama looking for? I was looking for you, Hashem. Hashem, now, in that place of the cheeseburger, there is a spark of closeness that I was seeking, which I'm never allowed to do that lechatchila. I'm never allowed to say, I'm going to go find you in a cheeseburger, Hashem. You can never do that. This is only after the fact if something happened, that's the power of tshuva, is you can go and re-identify as a soul, and in that place that I was looking for you, Hashem. And therefore, Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal will never have the mitzvah of finding Hashem in the cheeseburger. And that's what it means, that the place that Bali Tshuva can achieve, not even the greatest tzaddikim can achieve. Because they never touch cheeseburgers. But for a Bal Tshuva who went through things, but then he goes through that experience of Tshuva, and he re-identifies as a soul, is that even then I was looking for you, Hashem. I just didn't know it. And you can unlock things from past experiences. So we can never do it l'chatchila, but afterwards, if something happened, this is the power of tshuva. Tshuva is very, very powerful. Beyond powerful. So Moshe Rabbeinu dies in Adar, and therefore Haman thinks this is going to be a great month to destroy the Jewish people. Hashem Yirachem. V'alei ha'Torah megalan astarus k'moshe kosu b'maimer b'yom bikurim v'savar shema'achar shemeis Moshe ad nitbatel koyach esek ha'Torah. So Haman thought, now that Moshe Rabbeinu died, there's no more power that the Jews have for Torah. This month means they're weak. It can't be that they could reveal Hashem in the world anymore because the power of Moshe Rabbeinu is gone. And therefore he got very, very powerful during this time with his dimyonis. Haman represents everything that stands against holy kingship. Haman is the kingship of evil. He's the evil king. Gam zelu mazeh, you have a king of good, which represents David HaMelech, King David, King Solomon. And then you have the kingdom of evil. That's a kingdom. It is a kingdom. With ministers and princes and the whole Pamalia delay. And the whole Gunda delay. And all the henchmen. But all it wants to do is to destroy everything holy and pure in the world. As Mizgabachin is Haman Amalek, and therefore the powers of Haman and Amalek start getting force. V'zeh is hakol kol Yankov v'yadayim yedei Esav. Bizman she'hakol kol Yankov ein yadayim yedei Esav. That he felt, there's no more kol Yankov. The Jews are not learning Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu died. Now we can increase the hands and the fighting powers of Esav. Esav is the grandfather of Amalek, who is the grandfather of Haman, and therefore everything that goes against holiness, if this is the time that the Torah is weakening, now we can overcome them. Ki al de akol Yaakov shu esek ha-Torah al de zeh megalan astaros. But we know if the voice of Jacob is strong, that's the way that we fight. We fight with our Torah. It says the Mashiach won't need to lift any weapons. He's just going to use the word of Torah. He's going to speak the word of Hashem to the world. And when we're using our words powerfully to build, so then all the weapons fall away. She malchus Haman Amalek she mezera Esav. V'zeh b'chinas hippel pur hu ha'goyra ki lamala kula toiv. V'sham b'shar shem afilu asitra acha b'shar shehu toiv. V'lamat nisparden liyamin l'smol shem sitra de kedusha v'sitra achra. V'lamala nishpa shefa chayim tamid shu kuloi toiv. V'tzarach lasois kelim l'kabel achiyas shezeh nasa al de esek ha-Torah shu b'chinas yomim umidois she'al yodem ekabel achiyas l'toich ha-kelim ve'amidois v'kashe'ein esek ha-Torah chas v'sholom as nichneses chas v'sholom ha-sitra achar mekabelas achiyas v'nishpa milamala. It's like this. There's only good coming down from heaven. If we are learning Torah, we create vessels to receive that good. If we're not learning Torah chas v'sholom, then the hands of Esav grab a hold of that energy and they don't use it for good. What do they do with it? You don't want to know. Which means only blessing is flowing down. But Hashem is telling us, if you use your free will and your voice to create vessels to hold on and to grab that blessing, then the blessing will go to you and you'll build a kingdom of goodness in the world. But if you don't, so to speak, then the blessing will go somewhere else and they won't use it, for good things. This is all to do with why Hashem had to hide the Or HaGanuz, the hidden light, in the beginning of time. Because Hashem saw that there was a great light, and if the evil people would get a hold of this light, they would destroy the world with it. This power, you have to be very careful. This power is that it goes into the right hands. Because she'ein esek ha-Torah chas v'shalom, as I nichneses chas v'shalom ha-sitra achar, mekabelas achiyas, ha-nishma l'mala, b'chinas tachas eved, ki yimloich, v'shivcha ki sirash, ve'agoyrel hu b'chinas alma da'asi. Kamoy shekosov tanuach v'tamay legoyrelcha leketz hayomim kemerumez. This whole idea, Purim is a very interesting name for a holiday. because Purim means these lots. Hippul Pur, Hu Agoira. Purim literally means like that Haman drew lots. It was like a lottery. Which is kind of a funny thing, is it's barely part of the story. And the whole holiday is called Purim.
But what created the whole story? Like without that one part, we have no story.
There's a lot of things that seem to be like... So yeah, on a simple level, yeah, it happened in that month, but he could have done it in so many ways. It had to be... So one of the ideas of a pur, of a goyral, and by the way, Jews are into goyralos. It's a very Jewish thing because the idea of a goyral is that you relinquish your control of the situation. Whatever is picked is picked. Which is another way of saying, Hashem, you're deciding. That's how we like, you put all the names in a bag and let's see who's going to win the shas. We're not like, poker players. That's not a Jewish thing. You get what I'm saying? Let's stay away from gambling. But a pur is, because the poker guy, I know how to play this guy. I'm Amish. And whenever I talk about poker, there's a guy that's like, yeah, I'm literally the best player. Like every time, it's so prevalent, it's crazy. It's so not a Jewish thing to be like into gambling. But I'll use it for tzedakah. Money that's not coming from a holy source doesn't do good things. It's exactly what we were saying before, mamish. And you should know that, it's not pashut. It says money that didn't come from good places, it's tainted. It's tainted, and it has ripple effects. And people that are, some tzaddikim could see this, they're like, keep that away from me, I don't want it. What do you mean, like, build your shul with it, Rabbi? No, that's tainted. I don't want that. It's like mob stuff. It's tainted. Yes?
What counts as a good or bad place for that custom? The money from a bad place, has bad energy.
What do you mean?
Like if you work, you make money.
Yeah, oh, you
But if it's from gambling, that's...
I'm saying gambling, it's starting to get tainted. It's starting to get tainted. Especially, the Gemara says there's two real reasons why we're not like big gamblers. Number one is that it's a bit like stealing. What do you mean? But he agreed to put his chips in. Yeah, but when he was playing, and when he's putting all the money in the pot, so he thinks he's going to win. At that point, he really is, and then he puts down his hand, and then you put down your hand. I don't mean you, it's called the guy Ruvain. And then he had a straight, and the other guy had a royal flush. So he thought he was going to win. At that second, when he literally is like, come to mama, and he pulls the chips to him, he did not want to give up his money. And at that point, you see the guy's face turn white. That's not great. Now, certainly, when he starts like putting credit cards down, mortgaging his house, and his buddy's like, maybe you should call your wife. He's like, I don't have time for this stuff. And people ruin their lives. So you're like, he played fair and square. Not quite.
So manipulate him to feel that way.
That's right.
You want him to think he's winning.
That's right. Exactly. So there's that whole end of it, which we call, it's like stealing. It's not straight up. I didn't just take your money, but I'm sort of playing you. And then there's another thing, which is just the culture of casinos. There's no clocks. There's no windows. They're pumping oxygen into the air. It's not sneeze. Usually goes along with, I don't go to casinos, thank God, but it usually goes along with men's entertainment, and this is not a holy place to be hanging out. Everybody knows that. They're just like, nowadays somebody said they don't even do that anymore. Just
buttons, yeah. Dude, less action.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You don't even get like a shtickle exercise. That would be a little bit of like an elliptic situation. Nothing.
Switch hands.
Yeah, nothing.
Recently I was at a casino for a concert and I saw this woman on a scooter driving around the machines, just hitting every one of them, like just in a circle.
Oh yeah.
You see weird stuff. I don't think
It's hypnosis. It's Haman. It's hypnosis.
it's mamish. It's such deep hypnosis. It puts you into shena,
Yeah.
and then you walk out like, where am I?
Yeah.
What is this world? So talk about a deep, 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 deep sleep. The world of casinos. We should be zoich, my friends, to stay very, very far away. To stay very, very far away. To have clean money. Clean money is you worked hard. You're doing something honest. Business, you're building something, you're helping somebody do something, you're dealing honestly in the business. You can be involved in all sorts of stuff.
What if you're not involved but the business is doing something dirty, questionable?
So really, the first thing is that you for sure go ask your Rebbe. Go ask your Rebbe, is this something that I should be involved in? Don't think like, I'm sure it's all good. Now, you really need to ask questions on this stuff. If you suspect something is fishy, you don't think Hashem can give you parnasa? He tells you, be honest. So the same God who runs the whole world that tells you to be honest, He can't figure out another way for you to make money? That you need to but Hashem, you probably want me to do this. Because this is what's presenting itself. Hashem says, no, I don't. Be honest. You got to really think about it and go ask a shaila. Go ask a question to see, is this shady? Because we don't want to be involved in that. Hashem will help you make an honest living. And there's many things you could do, tons of things. And if you could really do something that you're passionate about also, that's amazing. If you could really do something that you feel like you're really making a contribution, let's say you get into, I'm just making something up right now. You manufacture the tops of toothpaste containers. Okay, you might not feel like that's the most meaningful thing in the entire world. And you make $1 billion a year because you're like the toothpaste top manufacturer. You got great partnerships. You always pay your workers on time. You give them good work standards. You're amazing. Now, you could add on to that because of me, nobody's toothpaste gets, dried out, and therefore people have good dental hygiene in the world, and I'm helping and then they'll feel better about themselves, and then they'll have bigger smiles, and then they'll be healthy because teeth health is like body health, and great. So you want to connect it to something meaningful. But even if you don't feel like it's the most meaningful thing, but the money you're using is to buy Shabbos food, is to build shuls, is to help people in need, is to give your kids good Jewish education. You're doing great things with it. So link it to positive things. But if you could do something, let's say you're directly involved, maybe in education, you're directly involved, and you can make money from that, great. If you make money in ways that are not directly involved, but then you become involved, we'll leave you with this, that it wasn't a halacha per se, but we know that a person in halacha has to give 10% of their earnings to tzedakah. Okay? Some even say you should give 20%. 20% to tzedakah. Rav Moshe Feinstein said a person should give 10% of his time to tzedakah. Meaning, he didn't mean this as a halacha, but he meant as in the spirit of the halacha, that give 10% of your time volunteering, teaching, doing things. You want a meaningful life, my friends. This will help wake us up from the Shena. We should be Zoicha Mamish to the Sipurim Maisus of Shana Kadmonius, and to be Zoicha this Purim to Beis HaMikdash b'mehirav Yameinu. Amen. Ayin shum yeyo, shein shum yeyo, shum yeyo b'ma b'lang ta, Rabbeinu Shoah v'gagada, ayin shum yeyo, shein shum yeyo, shum yeyo b'ma b'lang ta, mitzvah gedolah liyom b'simcha, liyom b'simcha, b'simcha tabami, mitzvah gedolah liyom b'simcha, liyom b'simcha. Simcha Tova B'Ami, Shachris Rabbi Isai, with Hallel, a good chodesh. Shkoyach. Kol Tov. Thank you, Yankel.
Thank you.